Welcome to the Google Stands 215 presentation. My name is Peter Twining. I'm a senior lecturer at the Open University and I run a program called Vital Professional Development, which the minister's talk this morning, he actually talked about our program and the importance of it to helping move forward the computer science curriculum. But actually, embedded ICT is as much of an interest for us. What I'm talking about is effective CPD in challenging times. And what I'm going to cover in the next 15, maybe 14 minutes if I talk fast, why does CPD matter? And you probably know the answer to that, but needed to touch on it. What's the problem? What do we know about effective CPD? I'm going to look at 3 approaches to staff development that Vital provides, and I'm then going to go back and critique them or look at how they match up to what we know about effective CPD. And then I'm going to put it all together. I would normally say butt in, but it's a bit hard in this environment for people to do so. So if you've got questions, come and nobble me at the end. Okay, so CPD matters. The reason that CPD matters if you're interested in ICT, I think there are a number. The first is that ICT changes disciplines. In the real world, if you are a geographer, a scientist, a historian, or even a sports personality, new technology will have changed what you do and how you do it. It will have changed the nature of your discipline. And so if you're teaching that discipline, and I recognize what you teach in school isn't the same as the discipline, but if you're teaching the subject, if you're a historian teaching history in school, or PE, then what you're teaching in school ought to in some way reflect the outside world, the reality of what's happening in the real world. And therefore, what you're doing, if the outside world is changing, ought to change in school too. ICT obviously also extends the curriculum. It brings in issues to do with what I'll call digital literacy, understanding how new technology impacts on us as citizens, understanding e-safety, understanding how to use the technology itself. It also changes pedagogy. It changes the way in which we can support learners. So if you're going to be a 21st century professional, you need to be able to do 19th century pedagogy like I'm doing now, but you actually also need to be able to do 21st century pedagogy. You need the whole range to choose the appropriate pedagogy for what it is you're trying to teach. And new technology provides us with new ways of supporting learners. And of course, ICT itself changes rapidly. So if you're going to stay up to date, if you're going to stay as a professional who's in touch with their discipline and with the pedagogical changes that ICT brings on board, you have to also be able to use the technology itself and know how it's changing those things. UNESCO had a summit for invited experts in educational ICT in June in Paris. And one of the things that came out in the final report from that summit was identifying that, we have a lot of technology in schools that is being used very ineffectively, or not at all, because the staff have not had sufficient support in knowing how to use it effectively. Okay? There's no point buying kit and investing your scarce resources in more new technology if you're not using the technology you've got effectively. Okay? Invest in CPD. So CPD really matters. To be a professional, you need to be keeping up to date with your discipline, with pedagogy, and with how new technology impacts on those things. So let's look at the problem with staff development as it is today. When we started the Vital program in 2009, we did a literature review, and it basically said, the CPD that we have within the UK, and my focus was the UK, is really pretty traditional. It's this sort of thing. It's coming to face-to-face events and very often going through the 60 PowerPoint slides on how to deliver the latest strategy. We know that's not the most effective way to learn, folks. Shock horror. So it's not been very effective, and Rarely Cover, which came in 2010, has made it more difficult for people to get out to face-to-face events. Our own research within Vital over the last couple of years makes it very clear that with the changing political context, the financial changes that schools are facing, and heads not knowing what bills they're going to get this year that they didn't have last year because it was paid for by the local authority, and how much money they're going to have even, they're sitting on their budgets. And heads are telling us, CPD is an easy target, folks. It's one of those soft things that you can cut under the radar. Of course, the new Ofsted framework helps, makes it more difficult to cut it. But heads are looking for better ways, more effective ways, more cost-effective ways of supporting their staff development. And they're talking to us about online provision. That creates a real challenge because teachers don't like online provision. They see it as being geeky. They see it as being isolating, so not discursive. They see it as being poor quality. They have memories of NOF. Who remembers NOF? Hands up if you remember NOF. A few of you have broken up your hands up. And they see it as being in their own time, not in school time. So there's a real tension about how do you get more creative ways of doing staff development that are more cost effective. So we have a challenge. So that's the problem. Traditional modes of CPD aren't effective. We need to find new cost effective ways of supporting staff development. What do we know about effective CPD? Can you see that? Not much. I did a literature review, so summarised all the kind of key literature, again focused on UK staff development. And the key message is, over on the left, it needs to be strategic, it needs to be linked to your school development plan. No surprise there. It needs to be school-based, it needs to be related to your context, your needs, your concerns. None of this is a surprise, is it? We know this stuff. It needs to be using internal expertise. Teachers are the experts. Scary, but they are the people doing it. They know what works and what doesn't. You also need external expertise to challenge your thinking, extend your thinking, give you new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And, you know, the White Schools White Paper, it's about sharing. It's about spreading the good practice here, or interesting practice here, and seeing how you can support other people in learning from that interesting practice. It does need to be informed by evidence, whether that's from research or from your own practice and internal investigations. It needs to be risk-taking and experimental. If you don't try things out, you aren't going to learn much. We all know that you learn the most by making mistakes. You know, if you never made a mistake, you'd never learn anything. Okay? And it needs to be sustained over a long period of time. And then most important, and the thing that hardly ever happens, it needs to be evaluated in terms of the impact that you wanted it to have. Okay? So that's what the literature tells us. So let's go on now and look at 3 different forms of staff development that Vital have on offer. The first is Teach Shares. Teach Shares are a video conference session in which a practitioner does a live demonstration of some aspect of their practice. Here we have Mr. Thorne teaching phonics. Okay? So he does a demonstration of how he teaches phonics through a video conference, and then you have an opportunity to interact with him and ask him questions about how does that really work and what are the issues and what are the problems. Okay? These are free, online, for anyone to access. If you want to find out about where they are and when they're happening, go to the Vital website, the events page, and you'll get a list of Teach Shares. The reason I'm on the Google stand is because we're collaborating with Google and we're getting certified Google teachers to run a series of Teach Shares about Google's offer. Okay, so if you want to become a certified Google teacher, you can go to that guy who was before me and do his courses, or you can come along to our free Teach Shares, which will show you how to use different Google tools. Okay, all free. So that's Teach Shares. We've got subject portals. These are built around the notion that communities of people with a shared interest in a particular part of the curriculum need to be able to get together, share resources, find resources. And what we provide, we recognise there's a lot of free stuff out there on the web. The challenge isn't that there's a lack of resource. The challenge is finding the really good stuff and knowing how to use it effectively. So what our portal managers do is they do that searching for you. They highlight really good resources, and they then provide guidance on how to use those resources effectively in your subject. But we also have discussion forums and opportunities for people to share their own resources and raise questions and all that sort of stuff. We highlight courses, not our courses, but anybody's courses that are relevant to your subject, and so on and so forth. So that's subject portals. And then we have the in-house professional development partnership. This, for me, is a paradigmatically different approach to professional development. It starts from saying schools have school development plans, and you have groups of staff working towards meeting objectives within those plans. So as a senior leadership team, identify an objective in your school development plan, identify the team of staff who are working to meet that objective, and then agree that one of them is going to become the vital professional. They're going to lead staff development for that team of people to make sure that they can meet that objective. And we take you through the vital professional through a structured process of launching the initiative in their school. So we give you PowerPoint slides, a script, tell you how you can customize those things, to explain to your team what your objective is, how you're going to work towards meeting it. We get you to do a needs analysis. What are the needs of my team in order to be able to meet that objective within my school development plan? If you don't know how to do a needs analysis, there's a module on how to do a needs analysis. We get you to do a professional development plan so that you can plan how you're going to meet the needs of the staff to meet the school objective. If you don't know how to do a professional development plan, there's a module that shows you how to do a professional development plan. You implement it, and then you can submit evidence, 2 sides of A4, effectively a practitioner research study, to get accreditation to demonstrate that you've done something in your school that has impacted on practice and or learning outcomes. Okay? So external recognition that you have done something that's impacted on your school. What you're getting is cost-effective, bespoke, targeted CPD that helps you get maximum value out of your staff resource to meet your school development plan objectives. It costs 600 quid, but we're doing £330 pilot offer until the end of March. And actually, I'm doing a special offer today, 200 and something pounds if you buy it off me today. So let's look at how those 3 forms of staff development map up against our criteria. So down the left, I've put the criteria for effective CPD from the literature, and I've then put columns saying how do these 3 different approaches map up. The question mark means it depends how you implement it. It may or may not meet that criteria. A tick means it does meet it. And what you can see is that actually these are all quite interesting. They all have potential. They all meet at least some of the criteria for effective CPD. They engage you in thinking about your practice. They link in with evidence. They're sustained, in some cases more than others. Some of them are very cheap. So that's some models. Let's pull it all together. I think what I'm arguing is we need a paradigm shift in staff development, in teacher education. We need to recognize the expertise of teachers and build upon it. Vital, needless to say, helps you do those things. I would encourage you to go along to the Vital website, sign up for some of the Google Teach shares if you want to find out more about how to use Google Docs, Google Forms, and all those sorts of things within your teaching. Sign up for a free trial of the subject portals. You can get a 30-day free trial on the website. And if you want to, if you're interested in the IPDP, if you get a form from me today and you return it by the end of next week, we're doing it for £231 for your 12-month support. Thank you.